Woohoo! Hello, everyone. Jess Claire here, coming to you with these two awesome humans who I'm going to introduce to you very shortly. I'm just going to make sure we are absolutely on. I'm here with Mark Nuss from Destiny Rescue. Yes, and we're going to introduce what Destiny Rescue do very shortly. And Taylor Stuart, who is Project End Trafficking. She created a project and now works with Taylor. Now works closely with Mark to support his cause. If you're jumping on, please say hello. Hello, Erowe. Hello, Corey. Hello, Jody. Anyone else who's jumping on, please leave your messages. We really want to make this topic something that we can talk about. Hello, Corey. Hello, Jody. Anyone else who's jumping on? Is that you, Taylor?
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Alicia, that's me. Yes. So we really want to make this topic something we can just talk about, and it's really important that we talk about it. Yes. It's not to burden anyone, but it's really to just create some awareness here, right? Because I think it's really important. Hello, Chantel, Alicia. So I might start by introducing Mark. So Mark Nuss. Sorry, why don't you introduce yourself? You go.
All right, I'll go. Firstly, I've got to apologize for the South African accent. So there will be translations later on. But yes, I've been actually living in Australia for over 20 years, and my accent I've got it permanently. It's not going to go anywhere. But yes, I joined Destiny Rescue quite a few years ago, where actually the way I got involved because we're a 100% not-for-profit organization, relying totally on donations. My wife and I actually put money towards one of my best mates one of the first ones to move with his family to Thailand. And we actually put money put money in every month and help them to actually be there and to be able to work in this fantastic work. And then over time, I got a phone call and I was asked if I wanted to get involved more. And I was like, I didn't even think. I said, yes. Where do I sign up? And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I better talk to my wife about this. But and since then I've been involved in Destiny Rescue, and we've been going. Destiny Rescue has been going for about over 18 years already. So I think we're one of the best kept secrets in Australia.
I think you are. I mean, I only came across you because of Taylor as well.
Yes.
And do you want to just briefly say, what does Destiny Rescue do?
Yes. So Destiny Rescue, like I said, we're a not-for-profit organization, and we operate in 7 different countries. Some of the nations we actually say where we are, like in Cambodia and the Philippines and in Thailand and Dominican Republic. But then we've got other nations that are what we call undisclosed nations. Because of politically sensitive reasons, we actually don't name them specifically. But we operate in these different countries. So what we do is we stand for we rescue, we restore, and we reintegrate. So we go undercover into the bars, brothels, in the dingiest little holes you can think of, and we go and look for children that have been trafficked into the sex industry. The World Labour Organization says that about 1.2 million children are trafficked into the sex industry every year. So, and that's where at some stage there was the whole saying coming out every 26 seconds another child is trafficked. And they don't have a voice. And the thing with why we get involved and why you'll find a lot of our undercover guys look like me. And I've had the privilege to go with our permanent undercover guys and do some undercover work in Thailand and in Cambodia, and I look like the perpetrators that go into these brothels and bars, and so I fit in.
I said that to you. I'm like, you look like every other guy that.
Oh, totally.
Yes. You're I know, it's perfect.
And that's why our guys can go undercover, because this is unfortunately a Western created problem, the majority of this. So you'll find in these bars and these brothels and these karaoke bars and you name it in these different countries that it's Westerners that go there. So it's people from England, from Germany, from you name it, from all over the world. You get sex tourists that travel to these places, and unfortunately it's the poor that get pulled into this type of industry and that get trafficked into it. And we've rescued children from as young as 18-month-old baby to 18 years and over. So, and if I can just say, what makes us different from there's a lot of agencies and NGOs out there that work in this area to really shine the light on what's happening. But I told somebody else the other day, the difference between us and a lot of groups out there is, like, I'll use the example, the Australian analogy of, we've got the Surf Life-Saving organization. So you get the overall national organization that will put out ads there and educate people and say, swim between the flags, watch out for the rips, which are very important. That's all important work. But the day that you're in the waves and you're drowning, you want somebody in the water with you to rescue you, and that's us. We go into the places where nobody will go into, and we'll go and find and look for these children, and we'll rescue them.
Yeah, wow. And look, like I said before we started this call, like I think I could speak on behalf of everyone, and thank you so much for the work that you do, because mostly we don't even hear about it. You don't know about it. It's way too inflammatory for it to even hit the news, right?
Yeah.
What we hear about is just some things that happen. You know, that certain perpetrators are convicted across nations, and we don't, and this is like, I think I told you about Corey before I jumped on. He's like, I want to get involved. How do I help?
Yes.
You know, and we're going to go through this. It's so good to have you on here, Corey. We're going to go through a bit of that. And just before we do, again, anyone who is jumping on, hello, Fiona, Janetta, Vanessa, Jody, please leave us your comments. We'd love you to engage. Any questions that you have, anything you'd love Mark to answer, you know, as someone that actually goes into the trenches. I was like, can I even say your name?
No, yes.
And he's like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, no, because like for me, as my role is different. We've got guys that are permanently undercover. So I've had the privilege to go with these guys in a couple of like in Thailand, in Pattaya, and in Cambodia, it was in Phnom Penh, to be able to go with our permanent undercover guys. But for me, my hat goes off for our guys that have got to be there 7 days a week, going every night. They go out looking for these children, and it's a continual work where it's 24/7 work for us as an organization.
Wow.
So to do this it takes a lot of people doing different roles. And for example, once, you know, I'd like to go in and explain the different type of rescues we do. But so if I, because like
let me just introduce Taylor, and then we'll get straight into it, because I really get this is an important conversation, and we do have you know, a lot of people who are tuned in for this. So Taylor, I just want to introduce this. Taylor is someone that I've worked very closely with before, a good friend of mine. She founded Project End Human Trafficking so that she can provide more support. She holds events and charity nights so that she can raise money and fund like charities like Destiny Rescue so that this can happen more. So Taylor, if you want to quickly introduce yourself, anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, so first thing is, like, the only reason I'm not doing what Mark's doing is that I don't look like Mark, right? So my role in the goal of ending human trafficking and freeing these vulnerable people is, I can see at the moment, is raising awareness. So yeah, like I said, I have partnered with a couple of other organizations as well, and I met up with Mark, and I just was blown away by the work that they do. And I just was like, how can I get the word out there for you guys? How can I help? How can I get involved? So here we are now, and very exciting to have him on this call with us. So yeah.
Very. I literally was like, I can't believe that we're able to talk to you. But I'm glad that you told me that, because I didn't even want to put your name. I didn't put your name on the Probo material because I was too afraid. No.
Like I said, with my role, not at all. It's our permanent undercover guys that we've got to keep their identities totally safe. And like I said, no, my role as a business development manager, I don't need to worry about my face going anywhere.
Okay, good.
Yes.
You look like I said, you look like just a typical guy, right?
Oh, yes.
That helps in your in what you're doing.
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
why don't you tell me? I know when I first had Taylor on this show, she said that there's 40 million people in modern day slavery.
Yes, that's right.
In that are being human trafficked. So tell me what the difference is between all the numbers, because if there's 40 million people, but there's 1 million people, you said 1 million children, like what are all the numbers there, just so we can get a sense of it?
Well, the 1.2 is what the World Labour Organization works out that's trafficked every year. So obviously, once people in, that number grows and grows and grows. So sex trafficking is one component of it, but then you also get the people that are forced into child labor. Then you also get, unfortunately, things like forced marriages, which we also get involved with children that are forced into marriages, and as young as 14-year-olds or even younger get forced to marry somebody that's way older. And also, then you also, like I said, the labor component. Then you also get people that are trafficked for organ harvesting. So it's the whole industry. A lot of times when we think trafficking and slavery, people think automatically of what happened in the 1800s when people were taken from Africa and put in chains and taken across to America and to England, all the different countries. But in those days, it was basically only the rich could really afford a slave. So because if you bring it in today's dollars, it cost them around between $30,000 and $40,000 for a slave, for one slave, where now you can buy individual for as little as $90. So it's I never thought, and especially when I got involved with this, I never thought I would live in a society where a human being can be seen totally as a commodity. And like with these bars and these places that are, guys, where we go into, for these operators who run it, there's no difference for them of that girl or a bottle of beer. And and that's why our guys can even go, once they've rescued a child out of one of these places, they can actually go back into those places and rescue more, because for the owners there's they put no value or very little value on these children. And and also it's the fastest growing illegal industry in the world, and it's the second largest illegal industry in the world. So it's something that really the light needs to be shone on it, and that's why part of my role is to be on wonderful networks as yourself. And I'm really appreciate what you guys are doing, shining a light on it.
Thank you.
And then if I can quickly just jump in, part of our rescues, like we've got two versions of rescues. We've got the COVID rescues, is where we go in and we go into these bars and brothels, and we'll rescue a child individually or a couple of children ourselves. And then once we've rescued them, we take them to our rescue centers. And the children get there for different reasons. But then we also get the raid rescues. Now, the raid rescues is we've built up some wonderful contacts over, like I said, we've been doing this for 18 years, within the federal police of international federal police, but also in all the different countries, their federal police and agencies and police agencies that deal with trafficking. And so what we do is we coordinate with them and organize these raids, where not only do we gather covertly all the information we need and basically build a case against these organizations, but once we've got all the evidence and everything we need, we'll actually go in with the local federal police, and we'll actually do a raid, and the police will do a raid. Once we've got, I won't go into details what we do, but the raid happens, and not only do we then rescue everybody that's being trafficked in that organization, but we also shut the bar or the brothel or the karaoke bar. We shut it down permanently, and those owners and the perpetrators there go to jail. And with our evidence gathering, we make sure that there won't be a chance that they can wiggle their way out legally to get out of it. So those are the two major areas. And
then what we generally hear about is that. So what we generally hear about is that someone has been arrested and this has happened and you're coordinating with authorities, but you guys are actually the ones going in and doing the work.
Well, with the
health of authorities.
Yeah, definitely. It's totally a teamwork. And with the COVID ones is where we go on our own and we go and find them and we rescue them. And then once they're rescued, we take them to our rescue centers. So I'll give you an example. When I was when I was fortunate enough to go with our permanent team in Thailand and went into Pattaya, we went to this. They've got these different areas that's like nearly tourist attractions. That you'll have tourists walking down, and the one is walking street, and people will walk up and down, look at these bars and karaoke bars, and so we were in one of these places, and anyway, I was sitting next to this young girl, and I started chatting with her, and unfortunately, English is the predominant language that everybody uses. So it's nearly become the language of the perpetrators. So in her broken English, I'm talking to this young girl, and she's and in the conversation, she kind of realized I was a little bit different, and I asked her, "How did you get here?" And then she told me kind of quietly a story, because she didn't want the handlers to kind of hear what she's talking about, but everybody's busy, and so in there, and so she quietly tells me that 4 months before, I'm sitting there next to her, 4 months before, she was in school. Her younger sister was a 10-year-old girl. Her younger sister was 10 years old. Both of them in school. They've got parents that are working. And to make a long story short, unfortunately, her dad suddenly died. And now here's her mum. Here's her mum trying to kind of look after both of them and have enough money. And she saw her mum struggling financially, and then realized if she doesn't help, both her and her younger sister are going to be out of school. So she volunteered out of her own to say, "Mum, you know what? I'm going to go to the bigger city. I'm going to find a job as a waitress or just find work, and so that I can supply money to you as well, and therefore keep our sister, my younger sister, into school." And unfortunately, she went, and the wrong people got their hands on her and forced her into this line of work where she was forced to sell her little body to dirty Johns, and this was the last place she ever fathomed she would be. And so I'm talking to her, here, and I heard her story, and I just asked her, I said, "What is it that if you could have stayed in school, what is it that you really wanted to do?" And she, it's heartbreaking when you see this, because when she told me what she told me, it was like somebody telling you a dream that they already for them was shattered, that there was no chance of that ever happening. And she told me she wanted to be a school teacher. And here's a girl that had a dream and a desire and a specific pathway she wanted to go. And because of circumstances, and then these criminals getting their hands on her, forced her into an area that she never ever dreamed she would have been involved in. But that's why we call Destiny Rescue. Our whole mission is to rescue these kids. And then once we rescue them, they go to our rescue centers. And in our rescue centers, we give them medical help, we give them counseling, we give them different, because these girls have been traumatized. So some of them, they've been raped, they've been and so many things have happened to them. So we find in our rescue centers, we'll find that the girls will probably sleep for the first 2 days. They'll just sleep. That's the first time they can actually just sleep without being harassed. And then,
so because someone did ask this on here, Mark, they did say, do you have your own aftercare program? So is this sort of a program? Is this aftercare? Yeah.
Yes. So we've got, in our different countries, we've got our aftercare programs, our rescue centers, because we've got to take them and make sure that they get medical help, trauma counseling, and so forth. So yes, we take them to our rescue centers, and then we've got an aftercare program, and with the aftercare program, we also try and help them, and that's part of our thing where we want to restore them into a place where they can follow the dreams and the destiny that they were, the pathway they were originally on, and even have a better chance at it. And so we help them also with education, and we'll find out what education level they're on, help them with education, and then also do vocational training, because we believe in a principle of, feed a man a fish, you feed him for 1 day, but teach them how to fish. They'll be able to feed themselves for the rest of their lives and their family. And
so sorry, did you just want to quickly?
Yes. So we've got different programs we put them onto.
Different programs.
And so we'll have in-house programs that we'll train them on. And just want to give, we've got so many examples, but I'll just use this one example. We'll just call the girl Rakana, because Rakana isn't her real name. We've obviously got to protect their identity. But Rakana, for example, we had different vocational programs in the specific centers that she was in, that she was rescued into, and there was nothing that really she felt she was good at, and she was battling, deciding which way she wanted to go, because we give them different options to go into. And then one of our workers there saw that she was actually very good at drawing. And so what we did as Desert Rescue, we enrolled her into a local art school that was like a Japanese style art, and enrolled her into that, and she really flourished in that. And then what happened is there was an international group that was a global animation and production studio that she went to an interview to do an internship, and she got that, and then really learned a lot while she was there, and then got employed full-time by them. So her life was totally destroyed, gone a total different direction. We find her, we rescued her, and now we've put her on a path which, like I said, she's rescued back into the destinies that she was meant to be in.
Oh, that's awesome, Mark.
And there's a lot of examples like that.
I know, and I think this is this may not be the only conversation that we have, by the way, because it sounds like there's so many things you could share with us. There's a few questions coming up. Kelly has just said, is there any volunteer work? Corey asked that as well. How can we help? How can we get involved in? I want to get into COVID and the impact that this has had on has had on this. But if people do want to get involved, as we're talking about this, like what are the opportunities?
Well, the opportunities is like talking about COVID. We've got a lot of people also that volunteer their time, and people say, okay, I'm going to take 2 years and volunteer my time to go and work at one of our nations. Project Nations. Wow. And so there's a way they can do that. Also, we've got people that said, I've got a family here, I can't just pack up and leave. Or I've got work here. And so we've got people that, if they want to get more involved, is they can become like advocates, where they can really help us with fundraising, because we're a 100% not-for-profit organization. We're registered with the Australian government. We're a tier 1 not-for-profit. So we totally rely on giving. We don't get government grants or anything in other countries. No, we don't, because we started here 18 years ago, but we operate internationally. So we operate in all these different countries. So
this is one of it's actually, I'm just going to mention this. This is one of the modern issues of our time, is international stuff that happens, particularly with the rise of things like the internet. People in different places all over the world can see crimes happening online.
Yep.
But because of the nature in which our system is worked out, we don't get funding. No one investigates, because there's no agency that sits across the globe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got that situation too. It's like there's this big issue called human trafficking, but there's no what would you call it? There's no bureau that sits across this issue, because everyone's all siloed in their own countries. So you have to take it upon yourself to raise funds from people in Australia, but you're actually going into countries internationally to save kids.
Yes, that's right. And one of the areas, like if you were mentioning COVID, one of the areas that's for us is, we know there is so much need right now there, and we really believe we're going to see an avalanche of more children being trafficked into this, because poverty is. Have you seen
that already since COVID?
Well, yes. Well, what we've seen is there's definitely been an area that we've been going into is in the cybersecurity area, and what you find is, and what's happening, unfortunately, is that people are now basically doing pedophile networks, because they can't travel there anymore. They'll actually go onto websites on the dark web, and actually it will be abuse on demand. So they basically they're the director of it'll be filmed, and they say what the abuser on whatever country has to do with the child. And case in point, just before all of the travel and all of that got stopped, we actually had our basically our first cyber case where the British in England, a gentleman was arrested in the UK, and the British police there took the information and notified the Philippines police agency, specifically the National Bureau of Investigation in the Philippines, and said on this guy's phone that they arrested, there was pornographic material of a 2.5-year-old boy being abused. And they gave them so because we're one of the major NGOs that deals in this area, they contacted us and said, can we do something together? So what happened is we, not wanting to give away too much of our information, but basically one of our guys posed as a pedophile wanting to purchase this 2.5-year-old boy to abuse him in a hotel room. And anyway, long story short is, once we set up a sting with British undercover agents, with the Philippines, the National Bureau of Investigation, their agents, and our guys in the hotel. And the guy came. It was a stepdad, and he handed over his 2.5-year-old boy. 2.5-year-old boy handed out over his 2.5-year-old boy for money, so that our guy that was undercover could go and abuse him in his hotel room. But
I'm finding that hard to deal with. My God.
Well, and
I have a 3-year-old son.
Yes, well, and I've got children myself. I've got 4 children, and this is unfortunately the thing that's increasing. It's not going. It's increasing.
How come you think? Like, how much money does someone get for that?
Oh, in this case, he was doing it for. He was selling his boy for $200. But this is a 2.5-year-old boy. And yes,
okay. So I just want to, because I think it's really important, right? I love it. I thank you so much, firstly, to having this conversation. But I think it's really important to just highlight that this is happening for $200.
Yes.
Right. So this kind of
$200. Yes.
Kind of. So this sort of tells me that whatever happening in these countries has led to the kind of situation where that's what's required to survive.
Yes. But see, in this case, this guy actually had his own little business as well. So greed, unfortunately, with some of these people, in his case, happens. But then, what we find a lot of times, it is poverty that drives these people. Like I said, people will, children will go, okay, I'm going to look for work because my parents are battling. Sometimes it's also ensnarement, because you'll find, we've had where people, they're battling financially, and then these crime organizations will send people into these little towns or in these areas, and they'll look for people that are at risk, that people are battling financially. And they'll say, you know what, I'm a good guy. You know what, how about I lend you some money? And it's small amounts. It's like $90. But knowing that the people can't pay it back. And then go back to them and say, hey, listen, still a very good guy. I can see you battling financially. How about your young daughter comes and works for me in my restaurant? I'll look after her. I'll even help her with her education. Spins of this beautiful story.
So all sorts of that stuff happening as well.
And I mean, there's plenty of stuff like that happening. But the problem is it's impoverished. It's poverty. And now with COVID, because a lot of people are losing jobs, have lost jobs, we can just see it building up, that more and more people are going to be in this problem. And then also our work has just more than doubled, because what happened with all these bars, and that obviously they closed because people can't travel there. But now all they're doing is they're just moving more underground. They don't stop. They just keep on. And so our guys has had to really scramble to kind of make sure we could see where they take these children, so that we could still be in touch with them.
And one of the things Taylor mentioned was that, so the whole issue has increased globally since COVID.
Yes.
Because more concerns about money, more financial and economic struggles, more of that. However, your funding has decreased. Yes,
because unfortunately we've got fantastic donors, but they've also gone through hardships, and people have lost jobs and they can't. And obviously, as soon as financial crisis comes, first thing people do is hold on to their money, because they're worried that next week, and I understand it. And it's totally, they're worried about their job. Am I going to have a job next week? Or I've lost my job, or I'm on job seek, or, or on job keep.
I don't know.
I don't know. So we that's definitely affected us, as it's affected so many other organizations.
Yeah, I totally get it. And this is why I think you really appreciate the work that Taylor does, because whilst Taylor is, like she said, she couldn't actually work in human trafficking because she's blonde and all of that. But
stand out like a sore thumb.
You would, but she can't do that.
What am I doing here?
Yeah. But what Taylor does is find ways in which she can hold events and raise awareness. I mean, she came to me and talked to me. So she finds other ways in which this is possible to get it out there that this is actually happening in the world.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it.
So, if because I know a lot of people want to contribute on here. I know that there's Corey, there's his wife Haley, there's like all these people want to contribute. So how can people support Destiny Rescue, or how can people support you, Taylor, in raising more awareness or having more events or doing things? What can people do?
Taylor, you want to go first?
I was going to let you go first because you have a really clear place where people can donate.
No problems. For us, like I said, we've spoken about the volunteer side and being advocates and really spreading the news through their own network. But at the end of the day, we need money to come through. And for us, we've got different programs we work on. We've got rescue partners. Those are people that say, you know what, I can give X amount every month. And they, out of their own, they commit, they say, you know what, I want to be a rescue partner, so I want to give every month, I want to give X amount of money that will go and help you guys to rescue these children. And then we've got others where people will do once-off payments. And then what we've got at the moment is we've also got people that will say, because it takes we've worked out it's a rough cost. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, but on average, just for the rescue itself, not for the aftercare, but just the rescue itself, it costs about $1,500 to rescue one child. That's basically roughly worked out. So we say if we want to
$1,000?
$1,500. So
that's actually not so bad, actually.
Yes,
you guys have obviously got a very good system going.
Yes, we do. And then to do a raid, which, rescues, there can be anything from two people in there to, we've rescued in one raid up to 37 people in one go.
Yeah.
And what it is the raid closes down the place permanently. It rescues everybody that's been trafficked in there, and it puts the perpetrators, the owners of it, into jail. With raids, the rough, sometimes high, sometimes low, but we worked out roughly it's about $10,000 to do one raid. So we've had people that said, you know what, we're going to band together and we're going to pay for a raid. At the moment, like I said, with COVID, what it's created with cash flow and so forth, we've got, just in the Philippines alone, we've got urgently 20 raids that are waiting to happen. 20. And so 20 raids that urgently needs the go ahead with it. And for us, it's a real thing that we face with finances, because the more money we've got, the more we can go and rescue, because it's such a big problem out there. And, unfortunately, we've had some heartbreaking things that happened. Like quite a few years ago, we had a rescue operation that we needed to do, and there was just because a bit of, at that stage, a bottleneck and lack of finances coming through. We had to delay it, and it was only delayed for a couple of weeks. But by the time we got there and we ended up rescuing the girls, we actually found out that the one 12-year-old girl that just a night or two before, 4 guys had booked her out, raped her, and murdered her. And that's the type of thing that drives us. It's sometimes it's frustrating, but it's finances that stops us getting in there and doing what we need to do. But and unfortunately, we see the dark side of humanity. Yeah, it's just the reality. And when I had the privilege to go with our guys, it's just unbelievable what other human beings will do to others. It's like I said, it's unfathomable sometimes what the things we've seen. So yes.
No, and look, I think it's important that this is raised. I mean, it is hard for us to hear, because we're living in a country that has so much abundance, and there's no tolerance here for this sort of stuff. I mean, we're outraged when a mum does some form of neglect to their child, right?
Yes.
And this is sort of deliberate and intentional in a way.
Yes.
Obviously cannot put my position. I cannot understand what it's like for parents or people to live in circumstances where this becomes the norm.
Yeah.
It makes me think of all sorts of things. We I personally have staff who live in the Philippines that work for my company.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, if that's the case, what's really going on over there?
Well, see, in Southeast Asia, there's just so many, like one of our, and unfortunately, people get trafficked within their own country, but they also get trafficked from other countries into countries. So,
well, it's a question that I. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go. No, you go.
I'm trying to get all the things answered at once. Someone did say that. Someone said, what happens in Australia? Is there actual trafficking in Australia per se?
Well, I'll use this example, and I will just because of the case and if things involved, we actually brought the police attention to. It was at one of the mining compounds at the mines. There was a compound just kind of off the mine, where girls got trafficked and basically sold to people coming in and out from the mines. And it got to our attention, and we brought it attention to the police, and they were fortunate to shut it down. So I can't. For me, yes, it definitely would be happening. But not to the scale.
Do you know the numbers? No, it's not the scale.
Unfortunately not, because once again, it's something that's hidden. It's not something in plain sight. So a lot of times finding numbers is so difficult because everything is hidden. So a lot of times it's guesstimations, and yes, so I wouldn't know what the real numbers is in Australia, but it's definitely a very small component if you look at what happens actually in other countries.
Internationally.
Yeah,
but I think one of the things as well, I mean, I sort of spoke to you about this before, is that, these things seem to be kept in place. Well, not that they seem to be. There seems to be some evidence to suggest that what keeps this in place is that there's obviously, like everything, an economic composition.
Yes.
So you've got people that have money who buy these services, and then there's people that don't have money that end up making decisions like this to either sell off their children, or some people do actually get fully abducted.
Yes,
right?
That's right. Yes.
Do you is there much understanding about the kind of conditions of which derives, or the source of this behavior?
Well, it's poverty is the number one problem. So, but you've also got greed, unfortunately. So what's happened, why it's the fastest growing illegal industry in the world, is because if I take it to the number one illegal industry in the world is drugs. But if I'm a drug dealer, usually I've got to produce the drugs in some dingy spot somewhere in the world, or some place where I'm allowed to grow X amount of poppies or whatever it is that I need to. But then I've got this whole supply chain. I've got to get my product, I've got to go cross borders and get it to a specific person. A drug user will use it, and then the whole process has got to start again. Where these guys have worked out that we can take a child, and that child, we don't have to go to the clients will fly to us. And that one child will be abused and provide money for these guys over and over and over and over. And so for them, it is the business model that is way easier than selling drugs. And that's why our organization and everybody should be shining the light on what this problem is. And unfortunately, like I said, why our guys can go undercover is because it is largely it's Westerners that fly there and go and utilize these services, if I can put it that way. And I think the Australian government last year, I think it was Sydney Morning Herald, I think where they were just looking at Thailand alone, I think they guesstimate that about 250,000 men travel as sex tourists to Thailand per year. So the problem is much bigger, and we are part of. And then just imagine now from all the other countries, people traveling, and that's just one country. Never mind all the other countries we're involved in. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I've had someone just say, Vanessa's just said, listen to Fiona's story, Fiona Burnett, I know that story, sold to Australian politicians, prime ministers and actors. So I don't know if you know that story, because obviously you deal with different ones, but this is a woman who, you do know her?
No, I've heard vaguely of her story, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I was saying before we got on that there was some stuff that went around in COVID about some things. 2 people that were arrested, Epstein. So Epstein was a guy in Hollywood, and Weinstein. What's that sound? The Steens. He was in Hollywood as well. And there was, discussion on what they were up to and things that they were doing in Hollywood, right? And then there is some light being shone on Hollywood and around, and if you think about it, there's a lot of money in that, right? I'm not going to draw any conclusions. There's a number of certain documentaries that are out there that people can watch about it.
That's it,
And then you've got what Mary has said here, where, there's young women and girls being trafficked locally in Australia, and massage therapy to pay, which is kind of what you're talking about here in terms of a business model.
Yes, the massage parlors, they've just sprung up everywhere, and it's rife, and yes, that and you'll have people that would have been unfortunately, they lured in by saying, people will pay for them and say you can come and study in Australia. So their airfares are paid and that, and when they arrive here, the passports are taken away, and they said, no, you've got to work this off, and this is what you've got to do.
Yeah,
so, can I jump in and answer this one?
Yeah, sure.
Because and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but on talking to you, and one of the things that's, I guess, part of what you guys do is a lot of your stuff is done overseas.
Yeah.
And I actually intend to do a few more of these with other organizations too in the future. And I will, to address, is it Mary? Your question, I'm hoping to get a few organizations that are working with victims in Australia more closely than Destiny Rescue is currently doing, because the work is focused predominantly overseas. And I will be providing access to the people that are interested to find out what is being done in Australia and how they can get involved directly in Australia. That is to come. So, please stay tuned and keep up to date with what we're doing, because I'll bring that information to you as well.
Right.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's very clear just from talking to you both, and I've done many conversations on this, I've watched a whole lot of documentaries on this myself, and done a lot of done a lot of research myself on it, is that someone was saying, what's addressing these men paying for it? Fiona Barnett says babies get born and raised in captivity. They never even see the sun, and they're kind of, this is actually some of the research that's out there and some of the documentaries out there around. They're literally like baby farms. There's kind of this thing happening. A lot of this stuff is happening.
I read an article 2 weeks ago that was men, and they weren't sure if these babies were biologically these men's, but they were identifying that these babies were being born to then be sent, like, to surrogate mothers, to then be sent to men in other countries who they had found these men were abusing these children. Yeah. They were literally being sent there for that reason.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like, just to point something out. So, like drugs is this undercover. Yeah. Like guns, like drugs. Yeah. There's this human trafficking undercover stuff,
That's
right?
Oh, totally.
And from what we can tell, the dark web is the place that this all happens.
Yeah.
Again, there's no jurisdiction there.
Yeah. But here's the thing. There's a lot of federal agencies that actually do work and try and, that do a lot of work in that area. And for example, we've been able to we worked with the FBI, with the Australian Federal Police, with different federal police from Britain, from different countries where they actually follow up, and they'll talk to us about how, because of our infrastructure we've created, is to help them, because they're following up with their own pedophiles that are flying to these countries. And so a lot of times you can have a fully functioning pedophile here, and he travels to those countries and then fiddles with kids there and then just flies back. but they're still breaking the law. Even if it's there, our federal police are still interested in following up and making sure that they actually put these perpetrators behind bars. So there is work there where federal agencies and different countries work together to try and stem this. But it's a huge problem. And even like what you said with babies, and that we've in one of our undisclosed nations, you'll find it's generational. It's like the grandmother was trafficked. Her child's born into it, so she's forced to be a prostitute, and then her baby, this young mother's baby, is basically going to be part of this whole process, and there's no way out for them. And it takes groups like us and people like us that go into these places and give them a way out.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. The work that you do is incredible, is absolutely incredible. I always like to look for the source, right, of these issues. Like it's something I call, where do we drop the keys here as a humanity? I do have a belief, and I'm fine for anyone to argue with me. It's fine. People argue with me all the time, just so you know. is that, you know, when I look at the source of some of this stuff, it all seems to be sourced again in money, power, status, right? This whole money, power, status paradigm that we've got. And you know, for me, it's like, well, we tend to make up these institutions, and even I think it's great that you've got different federal police and different federal people working on it. But ultimately, no one person is responsible for this issue across the globe.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, definitely.
You know, this is my issue with the internet, is that it's created so much opportunity. Like, I mean, even you're on here because of the internet,
yes,
right?
That's right.
You're getting this message. It has.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's created this thing called the dark web, which means, you know, I don't know if any of you guys have even been on the dark web. I've became across how it was possible to get on the dark web, and there's all sorts of things happening on there that are just like, there's no jurisdiction.
Yes, that's right.
And so no one is responsible for it because it's global.
Yes, that's right.
You know, what do you think would be the impact if we actually had a global jurisdiction on things?
I know that
I just could be making this up. I just wanted to pose the question.
Oh, listen, that's a huge problem. I know there's different like the World Labour Organization and areas there that have tried to do it, and they try and kind of shine the light or even force more of these things to be dealt with. I know, for example, that America had set up a system where they would give a lot of money. They'll give a lot of aid money to different countries, but what they started connecting the money with is how much those countries are actually dealing with trafficking in their own country. So if you basically didn't care, didn't do much, then you only get a small percentage of the aid. And the more you're actually putting things in place and that's why some of these countries were forced to start actually putting in agencies in place to start to try and fight human trafficking. So there's elements of that, but is there? We need way more.
There's no jurisdiction.
No, we need way more
political
to be able to bring this.
Like, it'll never happen.
I know, but see, that's the thing. Do you notice though? There's global jurisdiction on things that do matter.
Yes. No, I get it.
You know, that's what I'm pointing out, is that the dark web, and this isn't, you know, maybe I watch too many Netflix documentaries, but I'm just saying that, you know, there's also this other Netflix documentary that really freaking traumatized me called You Don't Fuck with Cats. I don't know if any of you seen that.
No.
Just called me and like basically
oh my god
documentary. Actually, we had like a 2-hour phone call.
I do. All right. And I'm sure people watching would have seen that. But it was the same issue for me. I think the thing that I'm really present to is that, you know, it's something that I address in all of my courses as well, is this personal accountability stuff.
Yes.
And like what I find is that the whole world is set up not to be accountable for any of it.
Yes.
You know, so I am not criticizing. This is not a criticism. It's more of an observation.
Yes.
And I do believe it's possible to have a global jurisdiction on some of this stuff, because we're actually really good at having global jurisdiction on things like health, like the World Health Organization, to make sure immunizations go everywhere. We're very good at creating global jurisdiction on money. That's why we have the reserve, we have the banking organizations that we have. We could have global jurisdiction over this stuff, but somehow it's not that important. And that's what I just wanted to kind of highlight in this Netflix documentary. There was this guy that went on YouTube and actually filmed himself hurting animals. And then some people who are, and then murdered someone as well on YouTube. But because there's no jurisdiction, no one knew who to go to make it happen. And so these great citizens became sleuths because of the passion that they had to making the difference to it, which is effectively what I'm saying you're doing, right? It's like we are creating this community organization to make a difference here, which is very important and required. But without this jurisdiction that we have globally, it does make it very slow, very time consuming, and really reliable on things like Good Samaritans reporting this stuff and getting involved.
Yes, well, I think because it's such a global problem, it will need a global response. But sometimes you've got to just start where you can start, And that's the thing, is that the more people talk about it, the more people shine light on, like what you guys are doing. The more light is shone about a thing, the more you can, the more you start getting a groundswell of people saying, you know what, I'm going to do something about it. And and that's part of the reason why I'm even talking to you guys and why you guys are involved. Is we're all trying to shine a light on this and say, listen, this is a big problem. We need to actually talk about it, be open about it. Like I discussed it once with, I was just talking at a university that came and got me to speak about it, and I spoke about it. And afterwards, I had this one girl come to me, and she said, you know what, I've got to have a serious conversation with my uncle. He flies 2-3 times to Thailand every year on holiday, and I've had my suspicions, and I'm going to actually have a sit down with him and ask him the hard questions. And to that ground level is sometimes what we've got to do. We've got to just be,
I love it.
Openly talk about it and say, hey, what are you doing? And like I said, the stuff that we see this on. Yep, you go.
Point out there, everyone that's watching, it is illegal for an Australian citizen to go overseas and engage in underage sex.
Yes, totally.
And when they return to Australia, they can be prosecuted if they know that they're doing it.
That's right, 100% correct.
It is illegal in Australia.
Yes. And it's illegal in these countries as well.
Yeah, I was going to say it's illegal in these, these countries as well. Like, that's the crazy thing.
But it's not, why I say that is like, it's not like, well, they did it there and they can't be punished here, or that there's no justice.
Yeah. But no, they definitely can be punished here. And that's why some of these federal agencies actually ask our help to basically help them, because they're actually following up with pedophiles that are just flying and thinking they're getting away with it, and destroying young lives in another country.
Yeah, and look, I wasn't asking you that question like I expected you to solve all the problems of the world, Mark. It's just like, it just stands out for me as, one of these things I always get really impacted by is this accountability issue.
Yeah.
You're clearly taking accountability for something that's not even yours. It's like, I am taking accountability and responsibility for taking kids out of sex trafficking in Philippines, in all these countries. You're taking that responsibility and accountability. What I'm saying is, imagine what it would be like if there was some jurisdiction over dark web.
Yeah.
International.
Yeah.
Like international. And look, I'm going to just like throw it out there. Part of why I think it's not is because there's a lot of people who are in power that actually keep it in place. Now, I'm making that up. Maybe I've watched too many documentaries. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Oh, yes. No, well, the big thing, for us is it all started with our founder, Tony Kerwin. And it was one guy overhearing a conversation in Thailand about somebody bragging that he was offered a child for sex. And that stuck with him.
Wow.
And then when he went back, he started talking to a couple of people and said, we've got to do something about this. And then started the organization and started. So it took one person to say, not on my watch. Yeah. So how much more if we get people who will start saying, you know what, I am going to talk about this. I'm going to start being more actively involved in this. I'm not just going to, because unfortunately I've had people, and you know, I understand it's traumatic to hear these things. But when I start talking about, because I can talk for hours about this area, and then I start talking about it, and I've actually literally had people go like, I don't want to hear it, and walked away.
Yeah, I get it.
We can't do that. And part of this, talking about it now, at least people listening to it tonight through your network, and thanks so much again for inviting me to be part of this, is we've heard now, and so we can't say, I didn't know. And that's how you start. You start talking about it, start talking to your family people. And obviously, like for me, I would say, donate to us so it can rescue more people. And it's that old story of, you know, it's an old story where the guy is walking and there's all these thousands of starfish that got washed out. And the guy's walking and another man's walking. He's seeing this guy walking, and then the guy picks up one starfish, throws it in, steps another step, takes one, throws it in. And he says, what are you doing? There's thousands of these things. You know, you can't help them all. He said, no. But picks up another one. He said, but for this one, it's 100% change, and threw it back in. And that's what it's going to be.
Absolutely. I think just on that, because I'm very passionate about that one difference that everyone makes, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure we've gone global. I've questioned the jurisdiction, and you've talked about things that are happening globally, and I've thrown in there that it's all power. Like, who knows what's freaking happening? But we really don't, right?
Yeah,
or why it's happening. If it's organized, whatever, you're saving children one by one because you're making that difference one by one. And I just want to bring it back to that. And I know that, you know, this is like, I want to bring it back to Taylor and this one difference you can make, right?
Like, that's a whole human life, not one difference. That is a whole entire human being, a whole me, a whole you, whose life will never, ever be the same.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not always, I just want to make this point as well, it's not always about being another Mark and us, or another person that's going out and going, I'm going to end human trafficking on the planet like Taylor was. Sometimes it's just being...
Yes.
Taylor
is ending. You know, it's very true. Corey just said we are the jurisdiction, Jess Claire. It's true, we are. Sometimes all it is that you say, I'm going to make this resolve to making sure that I have my best life possible, express myself fully, and not be okay with things that really matter. You know, with Taylor, I always use this as an example because, you know, I coached Taylor a long time ago. She came to me. I chose to have one conversation with her that was uncomfortable, and I risked that she was ever going to like me ever again. Because she told me she wanted to end human trafficking. And I remember this one day, she didn't show up to something, and I went, this is how you live your life, and it needs to change, right? And I literally walked away from that conversation, a coaching conversation, wondering if she'd ever talk to me again. Because I was so inspired by the fact that she wanted to make that difference. And if she wanted to make that difference, it was really going to take her stepping up and being accountable. And I encourage and now she does that to everyone that she coaches, right? It's great. You know, she's become like this person. And it's like that. It's sometimes one conversation to go,
that's right. It's
not okay what you did. It's sometimes like you said, you've got this someone that's going overseas, and you're going to have a conversation with them. Sometimes it's, you know what, that time you did that thing, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the one conversation. Sorry.
That's
Can I ask, how many individuals has Destiny Rescue saved?
Well, we started counting officially from 2011, right? So before that, it was setting up, going into different countries. The focus was, and so from 2011 we started counting. So since 2011, we've rescued 5,200 plus.
All right, can I just put you there?
Sorry?
One guy overheard someone bragging in a bar in Thailand
That's right.
that he'd been offered a child to have sex with,
Yeah.
and now 5,200 plus children have been saved.
And
Like,
that's
that is
the
the power of one person
making a decision.
saying, this is not okay.
That's
I'm
right.
going to do something about it.
That's right. That's
Well,
exactly.
I could even say I had that one conversation I was afraid of with you. You've gone on to donate money to Destiny Rescue to make sure that kids got saved.
Yeah.
And you continue to operate in this. It's like every conversation for what matters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
When you go, that's not okay with me, and you step up and do something about it, I'm just going to go there. Who is speaking to the men who are buying the children, blah, blah, blah. Who's educating teenage boys, rape and deal? How are we dealing with this? I can't see who that is because everyone, depending on what platform you're on, I can't always see. But whoever has put that comment on there, it's a very good question. Who is doing this? I encourage you to go out and find out. And if it's not them, you do it.
Well,
you get involved.
Can
You could fly.
Can I just say what?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, go, Mark.
No. What I wanted to say, that's actually a very good question. And what we've done is we've been going into schools and different places, which will allow us, and obviously you've got to be sensitive of the age, but where we actually talk about what we do. But part of what we also talk about, it's the big elephant in the room that people don't like talking about because they go, why, you're touching now something that, I've got my rights, I can choose what I want. But it's pornography. And unless you talk to teenagers about pornography and about the value of a female, that she is not an object to satisfy your lust and your needs, because what happens with pornography, the young kids and teenagers are being programmed to see females or other human beings as an object. And unless we have an open discussion about it and warn them about the dangers of it, because we see the end effect of this, we see in these countries that a lot of these guys are totally addicted to it, and their minds have been perverted to a point where that's the only way they can see themselves satisfied. I can go on for that, but anyway. So
it's great. It's great. You've just had me think this. I'm going to have a conversation on this. Oh my God, Mark, I have so many different people. I mean, Taylor and I went to Taylor's birthday on the weekend, and we literally spent the whole night talking about this issue of pornography. It was amazing, right? And I think it's a really good question to get you on. I've got people that work in the intimacy space and all of the work that they're doing around people actually connecting to themselves and their sexuality. You've got all this sort of, there's so much education on this now, but I'm not sure that this is being brought to things like this new kind of education being brought to schools, being brought to relationships, because you're right. Everyone thinks that this energy that we have inside us that's sexual needs to be satisfied somehow with pornography. But actually, again, like everything else, it's a way of us not expressing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So I would love to have that conversation publicly.
Oh, totally.
Just like this, because it's not just about the jurisdiction. There's no quick fix. It's not just about you going in and making sure these people are dealt with. It's also the underlying issue of what it is to have to satisfy a lot of these needs sexually through pornography and illegal sex trade.
Yeah, definitely.
There's talking about not being able to own what your fantasies and stuff are. And that's
we're talking about.
We can't talk about it. Not that we can't. We can talk about it, but we just think we can't. So we're not. And then, it's hidden, and then all of a sudden we're doing this stuff that's really horrible to one another.
Yes.
Yeah. We were talking about this. Absolutely. So I'd love to have another discussion. This couldn't have gone any better. We went from human trafficking to expressing sexuality. Yeah. But it's all related, right?
Yes, it is.
This is not just there just happens to be this human trafficking issue. It's like, no, us as human beings have evolved and been conditioned to think a particular way, told what we can and can't say. And this is all related to how we react to and relate to each other everywhere. Yes. We're all a part of this.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. So I would love to continue this conversation. And Kel, who's you know, oh wow, we could talk about this for so long. Kel, she's also a police officer. She is very big in the DV space.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure she would
Yes.
love to talk about this as well. But where to go from here? I feel like I could talk.
We need to.
I think we have to.
Tell everyone again how they can contribute to Destiny Rescue, and actually,
That's really, yes.
Is it 20 raids in which country that you currently want to get the content?
Yeah, it's 20 raids just waiting to happen at the moment for us in the Philippines alone. We've got some in Thailand as well, but at the moment the urgent one is just waiting to get the go-ahead is 20 raids in the Philippines. And we're right now at the moment trying to just get that money in so that we can give the go-ahead for these raids. So yes, please.
Where can people donate? Have you got a link that you can post in here so people can just quickly go on and donate? Yep. You post a link in this actual feed? Yep.
I'll do that. Once we've finished talking, I'll post a link on the feed. And they can also go onto www.destinyrescue.org.au and there will be there will be some donation buttons there, but I'll actually put a link in there they can specifically click on, and so that they can donate. And if people want to contact me directly as well, I don't know if you posted my email address, but please contact me, and would gladly talk to them further. Did you post my email address at all?
I didn't, but if you want to put the link to
if she named you.
I know. Sorry? I was like, I watched too much TV. I was like, I can't say his name. He's going to be assassinated.
No, it's not me at all. It's our undercover guys, our permanent undercover guys that we actually protect their identity, and they're my heroes. Those guys. But yeah, we protect their identity. So no, I'm fine.
You're good. Well, if you can put your name, email address, a link to where anyone can donate, just in this feed as well in Facebook, the one I tagged you in, I'll make sure it goes over to all the other channels.
Yeah.
So people.
If you comment, donate, I will personally go through and reply with the link just to make it easy.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. If you guys want to stay on after this as well, I'm going to disconnect. I'd just like to have a quick chat with you about some other ways that would make it really easy for you to get more exposure. But other than that, I just want to thank you so much for having this conversation. And I think it's important that we continue this and have different ways to expand this conversation. We explored sexuality, jurisdiction, pornography, all those sort of topics need to be addressed and discussed. So thank you so much for
and Mark, I'm going to address this to you, but this is, if any of your team ever watch this, thank you so much for what you do in the world and the impact that you make on the lives of human beings across the globe. You are the heroes, the unsung heroes that no one ever sees, that make all the difference.
Well, listen, it's our pleasure as a whole organization. Everyone involved in it. Like our Australian CEO is Fiona Birkin, amazing lady. Everybody involved in it is just so passionate about seeing this change in these children's lives. And like I said, I can talk underwater for 5 hours about this if I can. But
it's good.
And thank you so much for you guys, and thanks Jess, and thanks so much for bringing this to light and giving us a platform to be able to talk about it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And can I just say, we talk about the tag of heroes, but for me, it's truly a partnership. And our donors we see as heroes because they are everyday people who said, you know what, I want to make a difference. And they're willing to part of their hard-earned money to say, I'm going to be involved in it. And like I said, when I was sitting next to that girl that got trafficked, I could have not been there if it was not for donors. Just physically impossible.
Yeah,
it's truly a partnership. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your awesome comments and contributing to this conversation and being people that can be in this conversation and keep expanding this conversation. And yeah, we will have more of them. Have an amazing night. And thanks again, guys, for being a part of this. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.